The alarm rang at 6 a.m., sharp and merciless. Maya turned over, pressing her palm against her tired eyes. Another day, another race against time. The small apartment was cold, and the silence felt heavier than usual. She got up slowly, poured herself a cup of instant coffee, and stared at the city through the cracked window. Outside, cars moved like restless ants, chasing deadlines and paychecks. Maya was one of them, a simple accountant in a small company, working long hours for little pay. Life hadn't been easy since her father passed away. She carried debts, an aging mother, and a quiet fear that the world was getting harder while her strength was fading. But one thing her father had left her was a principle. Greater than. Maya, he used to say, truth doesn't make life easy, but it makes it clean. That line echoed in her mind every time she faced a difficult choice. By 8:30, she was already at her desk, surrounded by papers and the humming of printers. Her boss, Mr. Jenkins, walked by half smiling, half distracted, his tie slightly crooked. "Morning, Maya," he said. "We've got a big audit next week. Make sure everything's ready, all right?" "Yes, sir," she replied with her usual calm tone. She liked her job, even if it drained her. Numbers at least were honest. They told the truth, if you knew how to listen. That morning, she opened the accounting software to review the monthly transactions. Everything looked normal until her eyes stopped on one line. Her name, her personal bank account, and a payment, $8,700, marked a salary adjustment. Her hands froze on the keyboard. There was no such adjustment. Her salary was half that amount. She scrolled again, checking if it was a technical error. But no, the transaction was there, real, approved, and processed 2 days ago. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. $8,700. That was almost 6 months of rent. Enough to pay off her debts and fix her mother's broken medical chair. Enough to breathe for the first time in years. The thought hit her. No one would know. It could have been a system mistake. It might go unnoticed forever. She could simply stay silent. Her heart began to race. She stood up, walked to the small kitchenette, and poured herself more coffee. Though her hands trembled too much to drink, her colleague Sandra noticed. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just tired," Maya lied. She sat back at her desk, staring at the computer screen. $8,700. The number glowed like a temptation carved in light. Then her father's voice returned again, calm and steady in her memory. "Truth doesn't make life easy, but it makes it clean." Maya leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. The truth was simple. She had been paid money that wasn't hers. Now, she had to decide what to do with it. And that decision would change everything. Maya couldn't focus for the rest of the morning. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, but her mind was somewhere else, trapped between logic and temptation. She had always believed that right and wrong were simple. Her father had raised her to think that truth was the one thing that never lost value. But now, staring at the number glowing on her computer screen, she realized how heavy truth could be when you were tired, broke, and desperate. At lunchtime, she sat alone in the small cafeteria, the smell of instant noodles filling the air. Her friend Sandra joined her with a tray of salad and a cheerful smile. "You look miles away," Sandra said. "I guess I am," Maya replied softly. "Something wrong?" Maya hesitated, then shook her head. "Just tired. Bills, rent, you know." Sandra laughed lightly. "Join the club." Maya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. After work, she went home and sat in silence. The city lights flickering through her thin curtains. Her laptop sat open, showing her online banking account. The money was still there. $8,700. Real. Her heart pounded as she thought it could change everything. But then she saw her father's photo on the shelf, him standing in the garden, smiling faintly, the lines of honesty etched on his face. She could almost hear him again. "Truth doesn't make life easy, but it makes it clean." She closed her eyes. "Dad," she whispered, "what would you do?" The next morning, she woke early. She didn't sleep much, but her decision was clear, even if it scared her. She went straight to the accounting department, clutching a printed report. The man inside was tall, gray-haired, with sharp eyes behind glasses. Mr. Allen, the senior accountant. Mr. Allen, she began nervously. I found something in last week's payroll report. A mistake, I think. A payment was transferred to my account. It doesn't belong to me. He looked up, surprised. A payment? How much? 8,700, she said quietly. He blinked, typing quickly into his system. That's odd. No one else reported an issue? Maya felt her stomach twist. I didn't want to hide it. I just thought someone should know. He nodded slowly, but his tone changed. And when exactly did you notice this? Yesterday morning. He raised an eyebrow. And you're telling me only now? Maya's chest tightened. I wanted to make sure first. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know, Maya, we've had missing amounts before. I hope this isn't one of those cases. She froze. You mean you think I took it? I'm not saying that, he said, his voice too calm. But we'll need to investigate. Please don't move or transfer any of that money. HR will contact you soon. Her heart sank. She'd done the right thing, and now she was under suspicion. When she walked back to her desk, her legs felt weak. Sandra looked up. Everything okay? Maya forced a smile. Yeah, just fine. But inside, her thoughts screamed. Is this what truth costs? That night, she sat in her dark apartment, no lights on, no sound but the hum of the city. For the first time in her life, she felt punished for being honest. Still, deep down, she knew she couldn't have chosen differently. Even if the world didn't reward her truth, she couldn't betray it. The next morning felt heavier than any before. Maya barely slept. Her mind replayed Mr. Allen's expression, the suspicion in his eyes, the cold tone in his voice. She arrived at work early, hoping the day would pass quietly. But before she could even sit down, her phone buzzed. A message from Human Resources. Please come to meeting room. 3 at 9 a.m. regarding a financial matter. Her stomach twisted. This is it, she thought. When she entered the room, 3 people were already there: Mr. Allen, the HR manager, and a tall man in a navy blue suit whom she didn't recognize. His presence alone filled the space with authority. Miss Maya Collins, the HR manager, began politely. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. Maya sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The man in the blue suit spoke next. I'm Mr. Lewis from the internal audit team. We've reviewed your report about the unexpected payment. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Relief washed through her for a moment until he continued. However, he said, flipping through papers, there are inconsistencies in the timeline. According to our system, you received the funds 3 days before you reported it. Is that correct? Yes, she answered softly. I wanted to confirm the source before saying anything. Understandable, Mr. Lewis replied. But we also noticed a withdrawal made from your account, $200 after the transfer. Maya blinked. Yes, I used it for groceries. I didn't realize the amount was wrong until after that. Mr. Allen leaned forward. That makes this complicated. You spent part of the money, Maya. Her breath caught. But I didn't know it wasn't mine at the time. As soon as I realized. Mr. Lewis raised a hand gently. We're not accusing you of theft, but we need to follow procedure. The HR manager added softly, until this is resolved. We'll have to place you on temporary leave. It felt like the floor disappeared beneath her. Leave? She repeated. Mr. Lewis nodded. It's standard. We'll complete the investigation as quickly as possible. Maya wanted to speak, to scream, to make them see who she was. But the words wouldn't come. Her throat burned with the weight of injustice. Finally, she whispered, I told the truth because it was right, not because I wanted trouble. Mr. Allen sighed, avoiding her eyes. Sometimes, truth and trouble walk hand in hand. Those words stung. When she walked out of the room, the office felt different. Quieter, colder. Sandra looked up from her desk, concern on her face. Maya? What happened? Maya forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Just a misunderstanding. It'll be fine. But as she left the building, her chest tightened. The city noise surrounded her, yet she felt utterly alone. That evening, she sat on the balcony of her small apartment, watching the sunset fade behind the rooftops. She spoke to the empty sky, her voice trembling. I did what was right. So, why does it feel like I'm being punished for it? ... Tears slipped down her cheeks. But there was peace behind them, a quiet strength she didn't yet understand. Because sometimes, it's the price of truth isn't paid in money. It's paid in patience. And Maya was still learning how strong she really was. The next few days blurred together. No office chatter, no morning rush, no reason to set the alarm. Maya woke up early out of habit, but there was nowhere to go. She sat at the small kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee in her hands, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in her apartment. Her phone stayed silent. No calls from work, no messages from Sandra. News spreads fast in an office, and she knew what people would think. Maybe she really did it. Maybe the money was too tempting. Maya sighed, rubbing her forehead. She had told the truth and somehow ended up the villain. That afternoon, she went for a walk in the park nearby. The world carried on as usual, children playing, couples laughing, people scrolling on their phones. But for her, everything felt distant, muted. She sat on a bench watching a little boy try to fly a kite. The string tangled, and he started to cry. His mother knelt beside him and said gently, "It's okay. Try again. The wind will help you this time." Something in those words touched her deeply. She whispered to herself, "Maybe. I just need to wait for the wind to change." When she returned home, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Her heart jumped. Maybe it was news from the company? But it wasn't. It was the electricity bill. Overdue. She laughed bitterly. Perfect timing. She sat on the couch, pulling the old blanket around her shoulders. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was honesty worth it? If she had stayed silent, no one would have known. She'd still have her job, her dignity, her peace. But then, she saw her father's photo again. That same gentle smile. Those eyes that never lied. And she remembered the last words he'd said to her before he passed away. You can lose everything, Maya. Money, comfort, even people. But if you lose your truth, you lose yourself. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm trying, Dad," she whispered. "I'm trying to hold on." Days turned into weeks. She survived on savings and simple meals, hoping for a call that never came. Until one morning, it did. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Ms. Collins?" "Yes?" "This is Mr. Lewis from the audit team. We've concluded our investigation. Could you come in tomorrow at 10 a.m.? We'd like to speak with you in person." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Maybe this was the end of it. She didn't sleep that night. She kept pacing, praying silently that truth would finally speak for her. Maya arrived at the office building early the next morning. The familiar glass doors reflected her anxious face, tired eyes, nervous hands, but a quiet determination in her step. As she entered the lobby, a few colleagues looked her way. Some whispered. Others avoided her eyes. She kept walking. In the conference room, Mr. Lewis from the audit team was waiting with two other men and the HR manager. The air was thick with tension. "Maya," Mr. Lewis greeted her warmly. "Thank you for coming." She sat down, clutching her bag on her lap. Her heart was pounding. He cleared his throat and opened a file. "After completing our review, we've discovered that the transaction in question, the one that credited your account, was not an error on your end." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" "It was deliberately processed," he explained. "Someone inside the accounting department initiated the payment and used your profile to approve it. The system log shows it came from Mr. Allen's workstation." Maya froze. "Mr. Allen?" "Yes," Mr. Lewis continued calmly. "When we began investigating your report, we noticed inconsistencies in his records. Turns out this wasn't the first adjustment he'd made. He's been redirecting small amounts to fake accounts for months. Your honesty led us straight to the problem." She stared at him, her mind spinning. "So, you mean I'm not in trouble?" Mr. Lewis smiled gently. "Quite the opposite. You helped us uncover fraud that could have cost the company thousands. We owe you an apology and a thank you." The HR manager nodded. "We're truly sorry for the stress you've endured. Maya, you did everything right." For a moment, she couldn't speak. Relief washed over her like warm light after weeks of darkness. Mr. Lewis stood and extended his hand. "Your integrity is rare. Don't ever doubt its value." As she shook his hand, tears filled her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside the meeting room, Sandra was waiting anxiously. When Maya appeared, Sandra jumped up. "Well, what happened?" Maya smiled, really smiled this time. "The truth happened." Sandra blinked. "You mean they found out? It wasn't me, it was someone else." Sandra hugged her tightly. "I knew it. Oh, Maya, I'm so sorry for everything you went through." Maya laughed softly. "It's okay. I learned something important." "What's that?" "That truth may take time," she said, looking toward the morning light pouring through the window, "but it never hides forever." She walked out of the building breathing deeply, feeling the weight finally lift from her chest. The city suddenly seemed brighter, the air lighter. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't afraid to look people in the eye. The next week felt like waking from a long, bad dream. Maya returned to the office, but this time, people didn't whisper. They smiled. They stood up when she walked by. Some even clapped quietly as she passed. It felt strange. Yesterday, she had been the suspect. Today, she was the hero. When she reached her desk, there was a small card waiting for her. On the front, "Welcome back." Inside, in Sandra's handwriting, "Truth always wins. And so do you." Maya smiled, tears prickling her eyes. Moments later, Mr. Lewis appeared at her desk. "Maya, could you join us in the boardroom? The director would like a word." Her heart fluttered again, not with fear this time, but disbelief. When she entered, the company's managing director stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the city skyline. He turned and smiled. "Miss Collins," he said warmly, "you've had quite a few difficult weeks." "Yes, sir," she answered softly. "I've read the full report. What you did took courage, the kind that's rare in this business. You could have stayed silent, or worse. You could have used that money and no one would have known. But you didn't." Maya lowered her eyes. "I just wanted to do what was right." He nodded. "And you did. Which is why we'd like to offer you a new position, Assistant Financial Officer. Higher responsibility, higher pay, and a fresh start." Maya gasped. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said with a grin. She laughed through her tears. "Yes, thank you, sir, truly." As she walked out of the office, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from joy. All those nights of doubt, the loneliness, the whispers behind her back, all of it had led her here. Later that afternoon, she and Sandra sat on the steps outside the building, sharing coffee and laughter. "I told you," Sandra said, bumping her shoulder playfully. "You were born to shine." Maya smiled. "I wasn't trying to shine. I was just trying not to lose myself." Sandra nodded. "That's exactly why you shine." The two women sat in silence for a while, watching the sunlight reflect off the glass towers above them. Maya took a deep breath and said quietly, "Maybe honesty doesn't make life easy, but it makes it worth living." Sandra raised her cup. "To honesty." Maya smiled and raised hers too. "To truth." They laughed, clinking their cups together, the sound light and pure, like the sound of peace returning. Weeks passed. The storm had finally settled. Maya adjusted to her new role, surrounded by new faces and responsibilities. She worked harder than ever, not to prove anything, but because she finally felt free. One evening, as the office emptied, she stayed behind to finish a report. The city lights glowed outside the tall windows, painting golden patterns on her desk. For the first time in a long time, she smiled simply because she was at peace. Sandra appeared at her door, waving goodbye. "Don't stay too late, boss." Maya laughed. "I won't, just wrapping up." When Sandra left, silence filled the room again. But it was a different kind of silence now. Warm, gentle. Maya leaned back in her chair, gazing at the skyline. Her reflection stared back at her, stronger, calmer, wiser. She whispered to herself, "Dad, I kept my promise." She could almost hear his voice again, soft and proud. Truth doesn't make life easy, but it makes it clean. She smiled. Now she understood what he truly meant. Honesty hadn't just saved her job. It had shaped her soul. It had stripped away her fear, her doubt, her need for approval. It left her with something simple, but priceless, a clean heart. As she turned off the lights and walked out, the night breeze greeted her gently. The city buzzed with life, endless people, endless choices, but Maya walked with quiet certainty. Because once you've stood for truth, you never walk alone again.